G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Christie David, and I run a mortgage broking business called Atelier Wealth, where we specialize in helping property investors start out and scale up their property portfolios. And on their ambitious journey, we love to bring in guests that love to educate, share their knowledge and their journey with you. And before we do kick off, I do want to stress and emphasize that anything we discuss is general in nature and not intended to give advice. Today's guest is someone that I am super excited about. We've got to know each other through our mortgage broking circles, given that Felicity is a colleague in our great industry. But most importantly, Felicity is someone who has grown a large property portfolio. I'm talking 151 properties in 10 years. I'm just going to repeat that, 151 properties in 10 years. So for today's episode, we are going to go through how Felicity has grown her portfolio, the reason why there's been such, huge growth off the back of that, and learn a little bit more about Felicity's journey personally and through her property journey as well. So welcome along, Felicity. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Thanks for having me. I'm
Not
excited
at all.
to talk about it.
I really appreciate you coming on. And I think that's part of your ethos, which is to really share your knowledge and everything you've learned through your journey. I think it's super, what's the word that I'm looking for here? I think there's a lot of respect that goes into someone that's willing to share their journey, warts and all, but also you've kind of put that into a book so people, different styles of learning, people can listen to a podcast, people can read the book, for example, reach out to yourself, different styles of people going to learn in different ways as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I am a big fan of trying to lift the financial literacy in this country. And during my journey, I saw a lot of property investors get started, but without the foundation, it all toppled over. So there's definitely, well, for me, I like to sort of see people successful. And like you, I see many of them, sort of meet me in the office or their files across my desk. And I like to see good, successful ones, not ones that are crying out for help, although we do work with those as well. But
great.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, the ones that maybe struggle come across our tables and like, how did it get to this point, for example? Maybe it was a series. I don't say it's a series, it's one bad decision. It's probably a series of a couple of bad decisions that get you off track. Whereas, you find the people that are one foot in front of the other, less bad decisions, I think is ultimately what people kind of should be trying to attain or aspire for as well. So take me through the Felicity Heffernan story. How did it start? What's been your career journey to date?
Yeah, well, look, I first got involved back when I was 39. I actually thought I'd missed the boat. And, I've always been interested in property. I've always been interested in finance. In fact, I've had over 40 years just in the finance industry, been a bank Johnny for the best part of the first 20 years of it. And the second 20 years, that was sort of property investing and mortgage broking, sort of came out of that. But it's all pretty much under the big umbrella of finance. So when I got started, I actually met a fellow from the States who was doing a lot of vendor finance, and I got involved with that. And what I liked about the niche was that you could actually scale that property business by using private investors. And that sort of actually really appealed to me because at that point, once I had, I think, one investment property, I was over and out and couldn't actually raise any more money. But anyway, I was able to talk to people, explain how vendor finance worked. And essentially with vendor finance is that you're giving somebody else an opportunity for a home loan that's not going through the banking, the traditional banking area. So somebody can actually get a house off you. Yes, it was a little bit more expensive, but every single house that we structured was positively geared. And so I was the partner that did all the work, and I just got somebody that was prepared to back me with some money, and we basically split the profits. And so that's basically how I got the 151. Had I had I had to try to raise 151 mortgages on my own? No.
So let's just backtrack a little bit for
Yep.
the uninitiated or people that are listening unsure.
Yep.
Take us through vendor finance
Yep.
property. How does that work, and unpack that a little bit for us as well?
Okay, so vendor finance, basically, if I've got a investor that can qualify for a loan, and they actually get the loan, I would actually then go and find the house. I'd find the people that couldn't qualify traditionally for bank finance, and the people I used to look for were I like the coal miners, mainly because they earned big money, but a lot of them just couldn't save deposit. So they were on large incomes, and instead of perhaps saving for a deposit, they had massive, great big toys, big trucks and jet skis, all those sorts of things. So they had all the toys, but not the house. So to find those sorts of people to put into the house, generally speaking, within the first 5 years, I was able to refinance them out of that vendor finance contract and into traditional bank finance. So I know I've given a really sort of simplistic view of that, and there is so much to it. And of course, I sort of go right into, in the book, I sort of explain what it is. But essentially, you've got the bank mortgage, then you've added 2% onto that one and sold that loan out 2% above whatever we can get it from the bank. So if we got it at 7%, then the person that was buying it off us got it at 9%. And they were on that mortgage, on that 9% mortgage, say, until they could refinance out.
Yeah, okay.
But we matched all the other terms of the bank, so they potentially could have 30 years. And yes, I still have a couple that just will not go off. It's cheaper for them to go to bank, and I've still got them in my portfolio. I can't get rid of them.
they're just happy paying the lazy tax at the moment.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's it. They're just happy doing it, and it's like, oh, geez, like,
come on, I'm trying to save you money here.
Yeah, well, I reach out to them, just about every other month, saying, come on, no, because I think the fear for those people is filling out the paperwork, and
yes.
And a few of the stragglers, I've gone, sat in their lounge rooms, filled out the paperwork just so I could, move them on. But these ones won't even meet with me. So
fair play. You're doing your part. Yeah. So I guess, it's marrying up. You kind of got people that have the ability to get into the property market, but for whatever reason, don't have either the borrowing capacity or the deposit. And then you've got investors here who are happy to kind of on-sell that property as well. So it's a bit of a win-win, isn't it?
Well, the investors I found were the ones that like cash flow. So, I mean, there's a lot said for the capital growth type niche as well. There's a lot to be said for that, particularly if you've got Sydney properties or properties in capital cities where capital growth really does make sense. But we're in an era now where I think capital growth is probably going to taper off for a few years at least, and there probably won't be too much capital growth. And in about the time that I was sort of doing the vendor finance niche, it was sort of just after a big capital growth surge in many markets. So the actual cash flow niche, I put it as a cash flow niche because it sort of falls into the positive gearing type of thing, because you can buy just normal rental property that's positively geared as well. So that was the investor I sort of was looking for, and a lot at that time were quite happy for cash flow, and they saw cash flow as king as opposed to capital growth as king.
Okay.
But both are great niches. Just depends, I guess, what sort of sits with you and how you feel about it.
All right, nice one. Just want to touch on what you've just said there before, which is, we may come into some subdued capital growth there. What's your read on the market, for example, and where does that kind of outlook come
Yeah.
from?
Yeah, well, gosh, we've seen surging prices, particularly Sydney's
Yeah.
been massive, probably since about 2012. And I think there was a period there, sort of around about 16, 17, where it sort of tapered off a bit,
Yeah.
took off again. COVID, it sort of didn't know what to do for a little bit, and then by 2021,
Surge.
everything went crazy again. It didn't matter what market in Australia, it
Yeah.
all, just things literally doubled just in that year. So so when I look now, sort of particularly at buying property, um, it's nice because I guess markets are stable. If anything, there's probably now, because of the interest rate rises, there's probably lots of good deals to be had out there, because people are probably feeling the cost of living pinch and
Mm.
trying to meet the mortgage repayments, which just went up so steeply over
Yeah.
the last 12 months. I mean, property markets have certainly softened. So there's, starting to be some really good deals out there at the moment.
Yeah, I guess and I'm definitely hear that. So thanks very much for sharing. And this is where I guess you're getting, different economists, property market commentators as well, kind of weigh into this debate going, the rate rises they haven't had price drops and the market's held pretty steady. And we've got this huge amount of migration coming through as well. And there's a lack of supply. And we're going, well, hang on.
Yeah.
And there's talk about a rate cut coming maybe early 2024. And it's like, well, that's just like the litmus, the fuse for then property prices then have that next surge and that next run again. So having a look at that, it's kind of hard to everything's speculation, but it's kind of hard to see how we're going to come through the next year or two without having some type of growth, and everything's pointing towards some type of uplift as well, right?
Well, particularly, I think Sydney. I'm sort of Newcastle, so
Yeah.
more in a regional area. So I guess it's the further out you are from your main cities. I guess different markets do different things. But yeah,
Mm.
Sydney. It seems to at the moment defy all logic, doesn't it?
Doesn't
Just,
it?
you sort of think, all right, how do people afford million dollar mortgages or multi-million dollar mortgages now?
Yeah.
And how do they afford that? And but somehow, I mean, people are
They're
still
doing it.
buying property, and people have got to have places to live. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it is. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I find that very interesting. Yeah.
Certainly. So I guess we talk about that scalability when you start to put that foot on the pedal and you go scaling up to over 100. First of all, getting over 6 seems to be a benchmark in property statistics, and then you go, well, kind of crack the triple figures. Is it a mindset? Is it a skill set? Is it access to finance? Take me through. How does that happen?
Okay, it's basically a combination of everything,
Mm.
and the framework, which I actually wrote the book, I sort of built the framework. It's just so important. The first thing is, I think, is building your foundation, making sure that financially, you can cope with a rise in interest rates. You can sort of cope with perhaps, if property prices take a bit of a dive, all those,
Mm.
all the things that can actually happen. So financially, um, and obviously you need to have income, whether it be from your business or from, where you work and that. And basically, then the skill to acquire the right property, right through to sort of how you manage it, but definitely mindset. You might sort of you might get away with the first one and sort of robotically put it together,
Yep.
but if you've got two or three, and something goes wrong, even having a house trashed, a house burned down, I've had it all. And when
Right.
you've got 150 properties, you experience, it felt like at one stage that nothing went right. because every other week I'd have a problem.
Yeah.
But it was only because of the number of properties I had. I was either dealing with somebody not paying, or a house burning down. Now, I be perfectly honest, I only ever had one house burned down in the whole thing, and it was right towards the very end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that where insurance, like, I mean, we talk about, you talk about you plan for the worst,
Yeah,
hope for the best, and you go, well, is that what insurance is really there for? And kind of,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And look, I had a house badly trashed, and because I was using an insurance broker,
Yeah.
because that's, you talk about building team. So again, you can probably sort out your own insurance and do all that sort of stuff on one house, but when you're scaling, you need an insurance broker on your team, because when I had a house badly trashed, the insurance company said no. But the broker went in for me, batted, and anyways, it turned out we got the most magnificent repair job done on our house. I just don't think the builder knew where to stop fixing and not renovating.
Take that every day of the week.
That's right. But again, it's you've got to have a tough skin to deal with all that sort of stuff. But yeah, for a while there, I sort of, I really had to sort of think about my mindset, and that, because it would have been very easy to crawl under a rock and not come out. So you do have to be tough, and just know that it's not forever, that the situation that you're in, it will it will get better. And there's a lovely quote out of the Best Marigold Hotel. I think what's it called, Best Marigold Hotel, where he says, "Yeah, well, everything's going to get better, but if it's not better, it's not." How does he say it again? It's not better. Don't worry, I've forgotten it.
That's all right. Let's find it. That's right. It'll come back to you in a minute. So
it'll come back to me in a minute. It's not yet. Everything will be better in the end, and if it's not better, it's not yet the end. So it's a good quote.
I like it. I'm going to dig that up. We'll put that in the notes.
Yeah, Patel out of the Best
Okay.
Best Marigold Hotel. Yeah, no, it's brilliant.
Great. I guess you've been around the mortgage broking industry for some time, and you probably see it. Even sat on the, I'm going to say you sat on the board for one of our industry bodies.
Still on the board. Still on the board
of
of the FBAA. Yep.
FBAA. So that's one of our industry bodies for those that aren't aware. So you got 18,000 brokers. You've probably seen the good, the bad, the great, the ugly.
Yes.
So someone's listening, they're going, and this show's never been about plugging our business. It's more about education. But from your perspective, 18,000 brokers, not all created equally. What's your advice to people that are looking to build their team and unsure where to fit the mortgage broker role in, and how to find the right broker for them as well, Felicity?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting when I sort of frequent a lot of property investor sites and things like that, and there's always an argument over the mortgage broker. Oh, well, you just go to any mortgage broker. Ones that don't charge fees. Why should you pay a mortgage broker fee? Blah 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 blah. Well, but not all mortgage brokers are created equal. I maintain, that if you want someone to do a good job for you, they probably at least need to have some experience in the area. And it's one thing to be able to, I think any broker could write an investment property loan, but then how does it get structured? How does that fit into you scaling up your property portfolio? Can you get the next property, after you've, done the first one? Or, if it's not structured correctly, does it max you out for the foreseeable future? I think a broker that's perhaps at least had some property investment experience personally is probably going to be someone's going to be able to help you out. Someone that's probably been in the industry for a while too. Now that's not to say that you're new to industry. Brokers certainly can't help you out, because they could be, real estate agents, for example, and I've got a good, a really good knowledge around property and things like that. But it's like anything else. If I'm going to go to a financial planner, I want to know that, they personally have built some wealth on, the advice that they're about to give me. So has the broker, been able to, sort of, do stuff with property and understand property, because you want to sort of, not only just get the loan, but tap into their ability and their experience that's been in property.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I love that. I mean, if you cast your mind back to when and I think you came out of a bank, but I cast my mind back to when I was a broker in the very early days. I was like, my policy knowledge was, limited, and there's only so much that you can retain, or there's only so many clients that you're in front of. And then as your portfolio builds personally, as your skill set builds over time, and dealing with different clients, different banks, different policy niches as well. I think that's what Felicity is trying to allude to, which is over time, I mean, you call it the 10,000 hour rule, for example, but over time you build mastery. But at the very start, you've got grit, you've got determination and hunger in the belly, but you don't know what you don't know at that early stage as well.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Tips for newer investors, I guess, when you're starting out your journey. I think you mentioned it earlier, which I loved, which is you said what age you were, like 38, I believe, or around there. And you felt it was too late. Now,
I thought I'd missed the boat. I really thought I'd missed the boat. Yeah. But I think you could be, you could be 60 and still do this. And I feel I see a lot of people, both with money and without money, and people that have perhaps had a life event that's wiped them out, and they're 58 years old, and they're going, oh well, we've missed the boat. But no, but it gets back to, all right, and now if you're one of those people that you feel like you've missed the boat, well, go back, have a look at, where you are at the moment, because what you've learned in 58 years is a hell of a lot more than somebody that's, say, at age 28. And I think you can build on that experience. And again, it gets back to mindset. It's belief you can actually do it. And just figure out a way to get started again, and just believe that you can actually do it. I just think it doesn't hurt to talk to a mortgage broker and find out. Most mortgage brokers will do a 20-minute strategy session with you, and walk you through, all right, how much deposit have you got? All right, you haven't got enough deposit. How much are you saving? And this is when, and this is the point that you're going to have this deposit. That's when you can actually afford the house. And you'll be surprised. It might only be 3, 6, 9, 12 months away.
Yeah. There's so much that you just said there. I'll touch on a couple of things. One is at age 38. The research that I've been doing at the moment shows that that's the average first home buyer age in Australia.
Wow.
So yeah, if you think about that, that blows my mind. So the great Australian dream is being pushed out. If you think about trying to save for a deposit while you're renting, for example, average median, the median house price, time, average salaries, for example, that all compounds, and it makes sense when you think about it. You're up in Newcastle, we're down towards Wollongong. They're saying for the average, to buy the average house, it will take you 20 years to save for a deposit. If you started today, that blows my mind. And then when you're trying to compare where you are to someone else, they say comparison's a thief of joy. But I think ultimately it's, some people have the bank of mum and dad on their side as well, and you'll never know that. Because that's often not talked about when they go to buy their home as well. So when you're trying to compare or even compete with someone else, I find that that's not a level playing field.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, you're going to say something?
Yeah. Oh no, I was just going to say, particularly, look, there's some fantastic strategies out there now that will help first home buyers. Just that 5% scheme, bank of mum and dad, that's brilliant. I mean, if mum and dad,
you're fortunate, great. Yeah.
Grab it. I mean, if you've got that ability, grab it. If you qualify for any of the first home buyer schemes and get in with 5%, your stamp duty. Well, in Sydney, probably won't be able to do it, but certainly regional. At the moment, regional people can get their stamp duty for free. But even if you're in Sydney, just the ability to, getting in at 5%. banks will still give you the preferential rate as if you'd had 20%. So there's some great stuff. And look, I'm just a big fan of get started.
Yeah.
Just get started. Yeah. Don't wait for the perfect storm to try and get in, because it you'd be waiting a very, very long time.
That's exactly it. Find me the ideal time. Lindsay's just handed me the quote from our studio here. It says, everything will be all right in the end. So if it's not all right, it's not the end. The
That's
only
right.
real failure is the failure to try, and the measure of success is how we cope with disappointment. Remember, you are everything or you are nothing. Isn't that wonderful?
It's a great quote, isn't it?
Thank you.
But the first part of that is, I love it. If it's so if you're not through that disaster, well, it's not yet the end. So but every single time, I've got to remind myself of that, because the temptation to crawl under the rock when it gets hard and hide.
I suppose this is what they call a hero's journey, right? So when it's hard, and
but every time I sort of I do resist it, and then I go, all right, I know it's not the end yet, and I know I'll get through it, and that. But somehow that day is always better too, because for whatever reason I took a very courageous step to come out from underneath the rock and face the day, or face people and things like that. So
Well done.
But I'll tell Lindsay, thank you for finding that quote.
Will do. Thank you very much, Lindsay. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Something that we've had a chat about in the past is you are right now. You've written a couple of books.
Yep.
Take us through 2 books that you've written.
Yep.
What are they about, and who are they for?
Okay. Well, the first little one, which is
I won't say little. It's quite a good size.
Actually, the one that is actually on Amazon and out there is Extraordinary Property Investing, and that is the journey of where I was. Started off as a bank teller and sort of grew the 151 properties, and that's the one that's going to take you through, your personal financial competency, finding your niche, and acquiring property, and how you're going to actually manage it, and then your mindset. So that book sort of encompasses the whole framework. The other little book, which was Limitless Wealth, it's actually it's really just a little book that I wrote that sort of didn't get sort of onto Amazon or anything like that, but I just sell it on the website. And it just sort of covers some tips and tricks around, your again, personal financial competency, and just buying some real estate, and that, I guess it was sort of the lead into that one. And the third one, which is I've put pen to paper, but this one's for children, because I kind of think it's really good if parents have got some sort of teaching guide for children. So the book will be for children, so written hopefully with some good rhymes and some great cartoons, and an interest for them. Because I find at the moment, I laugh at the grandchildren at the moment, where the little 4-year-old was looking around, trying to steal the card out of her mother's wallet because she thought she was going to go and buy something. Which, they figured out that, there's you can tap and go and somehow buy something.
That's exactly it. I mean, you talk about your 4-year-old grandchild, your 4-year-old daughter, and it's the same thing. Like the parenting in a cashless society, it's a new phenomenon.
It absolutely is,
because we're not showing them the money. And I'll have these conversations all the time. They want something at the shop. I'm like, did you bring your money? I'm like, no. I'm like, well, when you bring your money next time, you can afford to buy. And I think, I'm not trying to say we don't have the money, for example, but it's like if you can save up and you can buy it, and money habits from parent to child are learned behaviors. Like we're showing them, we're teaching them, for example, to either fear money, or that we can talk about money openly, for example, that money doesn't control us. But then you've also got some money stigmas that hang around, like you tell your kids, rent money's dead money, for example, or don't spend your money on that. And I think sometimes you've actually got to lead from the front and show the behavior in and around money. Is that kind of what you're aiming to do at the book?
Well,
You know,
definitely.
yeah.
Well, sort of to watch the grandchildren when they say, Mama goes shopping, and then they yell out, "Well, bring us a prize back," and and then of course usually the response is, "Well, look, money doesn't grow on trees." Well, kids kind of they I don't like today. They just don't understand. At least back in our day, we had coins and notes, and there was that whole tactile thing where,
Yes.
so that's $1.
Yeah.
Whereas you say to a kid now, oh, that's $1. Well, maybe at school they might start to get the concept of what $1 is, particularly when they have their gold coin donation at school. And I think that's probably the bane of most parents' life now is that if they're cashless,
That's right.
Yeah. So, with the book, I was sort of going to encourage parents to sort of still keep the cash, because for children, if they can see it, touch it, and feel it, then they've got a concept of, what $1 looks like, or what $2 looks like. I just remember from my own children, they used to sort of open the money boxes up and, start to build, little towers with them, and, or place them in little patterns and things like that. They just play with it.
Yeah.
And I think once they got that whole tactile thing happening with the money, then they start to begin to understand it.
Yeah.
My girls are now sort of heading towards 30. And it's just interesting now that they've got bank accounts. So they've sort of segregated their bank accounts a little bit. So one's for savings, one's for bills, one's for the holiday, and things like that. So they've actually carried forward that training.
Yes.
Yeah. And
That's almost the modern day envelopes, for example,
correct.
right? Having your separate buckets and bank
Yep.
accounts. Yeah,
Yep.
I think those
Yep.
money behaviors, if you have that money discipline, for example, we see, and again, we see with the line of work that you and I do, people that are controlled by money versus people that are in control of their money.
Yep.
I often refer to it, state of wallet equals state of mind. And
Yes.
you'll find that people that have that ability to control, where their money's going and where they can account for it, versus at the end of the paycheck, they're like, I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
That's just not good enough. And we're talking about building intergenerational wealth through property. This is exactly what you've done. Like, your children, their children are going to be the beneficiaries of you making good, hard decisions. Yes, you said, look, I want to curl up under a rock sometimes and go, when's this going to end?
Yep.
But someone in that generation, that lineage, had to go first.
That's right.
And that's you, Felicity. So I want to say, well done, taking action.
No, and the thing is, and that's why I think it's so important just to pass the knowledge on. I'm excited about the knowledge going on, and I'd like to sort of see that, because it's not taught at school, and it's a bugbear of mine. I mean, gosh, they seem to learn everything else. There's no finance program, and yet it is such a big part of people's lives.
Spot on. Spot on. Well, I want to say thank you very much. I'm not sure I'm going to put you on the spot here. Would we get a couple of copies of books to give away, do you think?
You absolutely can.
Legend. Thank you.
How many would you like?
Let's give away 3. So there's always a good
3.
number.
Yep, 3's a good number.
Yep. So we'll give away a couple of copies there. So if you want to reach out to us and you love and connecting with what Felicity is putting out there, reach out to us. We've got grab a couple of those books. And spread the love on what Felicity is trying to share in her message, but also I think the ethos as well, that it's never too late to invest in property, and also that action takers get rewarded, because you may have the means and the ability, but if not taking action, then really we're not moving forward in life as well financially. So Felicity, thank you very much for your energy, and thanks very much for sharing your knowledge and insights.
Thanks, Aaron, for having me.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. And thanks for doing this podcast. I think it's absolutely fantastic. You've done a stunning job. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. And I think I've had a chat a few times with people going, oh, what's the listeners? And I think this came about because I was lucky enough to be judging the Australian Podcast Awards. And
oh, really?
Yeah. And you get this fascinating insight.
I'm in podcast royalty.
Yeah, watch out. I can be bribed. And it was just interesting to see, I guess, the downloads, like the engagement, and how people are leveraging their podcasts as well. And I said, look, I don't know, because someone asked me what are the downloads like. I said, I just don't know, because all I know is there's a couple of people that have reached out to us after listening to this, and it's made an impact in their life. And if we're just talking to one or two people of each episode, not that we're aiming low, we love to aim high, but it's like their vanity metrics really in the grand scheme of things. If we're having an impact, for example, and being able to bring in guests like yourself, we've had some phenomenal guests when I go through the Rolodex of names that we've had on this show.
You have.
That's what
Stunning,
incredible
stunning
names, right? And that's what I love about this industry and what we're doing is people want to share their journey, and people just want to see other people win and do well. Like that's such an abundance mindset. So if we can kind of capture that, I appreciate the sentiment, but it's kind of all about paying it forward and helping people make good quality, confident decisions. This is simply a vehicle to do that. So thank you, Felicity, for your insights. That's a wrap for another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. If you found that helpful and you've loved the message here, please leave us a review. It really kind of helps this show move up the ranks and get into more AirPods as well. And we look forward to bringing you another guest very, very shortly. That's a wrap. We'll talk soon. Bye.